My name is Monk Rowe, and we are in Los Angeles filming for the Hamilton College Jazz Archive. Been looking forward to talking with Sam Most, saxophonist, flutist, and clarinetist.
Thank
You've
you.
been around for a long time.
Yeah.
Like on the forefront of a number of things in jazz, so welcome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
You know, you and your brother, your family went back and forth between New York and Atlantic City, is that right?
That's right. Well, I was born in Atlantic City, but there's some story, I don't know if my brother told you, but someone put a little letter in the box. We'd like to kidnap one of your twins, and I'm a twin. I have a twin sister. They said if you don't hand over a certain amount of money, 10,000 or whatever it is at the time. And so I think my
mother... Are you
mother,
making this up now?
No, I'm not making this up.
It's wild.
This is a story, you know, so they were in Atlantic City, my folks, and so I guess they didn't know, they couldn't find out who did it. I guess they had the FBI out or something. And they got scared. They said, let's move out of here. You know, someone put a threat in. I don't know whether it was a family member or what, or outside the family, but that's what my father had a little grocery business or something. So we moved to New York when I was 4. So I really consider myself a New Yorker.
Gee.
So I was in there since about, about 1960. So I was born in 1930.
Wow. Well, I hadn't heard that story before.
You hadn't heard that? Yeah, so he probably didn't mention that. But that's one of the things, when you mentioned Atlantic City, remember there was a piano in Atlantic City. I think we had an upstairs and a downstairs. I don't remember.
So that's your memory of your really birthplace.
Yeah.
You said your father was a grocer? He had a grocery store?
He had a candy store or something. Yeah. And I think he did some, during the Depression, I hear he did some moonshining. Whatever, that type of thing.
Cool. Little family history there.
Little family history, yeah.
I mean, how much candy can you actually sell?
Right, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Was he or your mother musical?
Actually, my father was kind of used to sing in the temple and things like that, like almost like a cantor, but not officially a cantor. And my mother had a good ear, but they didn't have any, music. They weren't in any musical things.
So I wonder where those musical genes came from in you and your brother.
That we don't know.
That interesting.
Yeah, not really sure, except, of course, I idolized my brother when I was growing up. He was already on the road with Les Brown or Tommy Dorsey, and he's 10 or 11 years older. So, as I say, I idolized him when I was growing up because he's playing these great clarinet solos and everything.
Yeah, that's good. A lot of times siblings don't exactly get along too well.
Right. No, I got his old metal clarinet, then I got his other clarinet, Selmer.
Hand-me-down instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Cool.
Yeah.
Did you take up the clarinet or the saxophone first, or was it the flute?
I took up I guess I was 11, I believe. When I had a few clarinet lessons. They used to have a teacher, 48th Street, Louis Arfine, and so I started the clarinet, and then came the alto, I believe. And then you had to play the flute to get into the bands. So I started the flute, and it seemed not too many people were playing jazz on the flute, and that was around the 1950-something area.
Yeah, you're right. There seems to be a little bit of, not controversy, but you hear different stories of who actually was the first jazz flute player. Your name
yeah, my name seems to come up. I understand there could have been some others that I don't know they're playing, or I don't know who started first, but Wayne Carver or some other other people.
I think it's more, they maybe just used it incidentally. So, who was the first person to really...
It seemed like I was one of the first ones that used it kind of in the bebop way, and mostly from absorbing some of the Charlie Parker and the bebop saxophonists and just transferring it to the flute.
Did you get into swing from the radio, or just because your brother was out there doing it?
More from the radio, and then of course his was more of a swing era, and I grew up with I guess 15 or so, 1945 or before, used to hear Lester Young and Charlie Parker and things, Lenny Tristano. And that's I grew up more with that new influence, and then of course after it came the Coltrane after me. So yeah, I grew up with that. So I kind of went, hey, this is interesting, and kind of was interested in that.
Did you ever get with your brother and say, hey, check out this bop, come on, get with it?
I think I mentioned some things like that. I think he was more, you know, you get stuck in your ways a little bit. So I think he liked it, but I think I'm more like, oh, the swing's the thing. If it don't swing, you know, with the recognizable thing.
Right.
The other thing was a little far out, just like maybe certain things are far out for me. I mean, I'm interested in it, you know, like the stellar explorations, John Coltrane, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What I mean is, it's interesting, but I don't know if I want to go there, you know, or could go there.
That's a ways out there.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So, I mean, it seems like it's just a different twist on the language. And if you're not in that generation, not everybody picks up the new language.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a good way to put it.
That's the way I kind of.
Did music become your career right away, or did you do other things?
It seemed like it became my career. I guess there were opportunities, whatever it was, when I was about 17. I had a little bebop band in the Catskill Mountains, New York. You know, and we were playing oobop, shabam, klugabop, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up with that, and I think just when I got out of high school, I think just for a very short period, 6 months, I worked for Blue Cross plan. It was just papers.
Oh, yeah.
And so on. But after that, it was all music.
Were you playing in the, when you said you're in the Catskills, you said?
Catskills.
Was it the resort thing?
Yeah, they had all these hotels in the Catskills.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the night you played some of the shows, different people, comedians and singers and different things. And you also could play like some jazz or solo. And so about 10 years in the summers, I used to go away, and I think I once had a piano gig with a vocal group. I played piano. But other times I played the flute and saxophone. And,
good training.
Yeah. You know, and I'll probably skip around here and there as far as what I was talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. When was the first opportunity to record for you?
Let me see. When was the first? I had a friend. His name was Arnold Rosen, and he was kind of like a pusher. You know, he pushed me because he thought I was the next Benny Goodman. You know, at the time, so he. I think he might have been influential, and I reckon the first one had Dick Hyman on piano. This is, I'm not sure, 1952 or whatever it was. Did a little 45 with with Dick Hyman and Clyde Lombardi, Jackie Moffat, I think. This was the personnel. That was the 45. That's when 45s were around, I believe. And if I'm not mistaken, that could have been on Prestige Records. But what did you ask me again?
Was this Undercurrent Blues?
That's the one I'm talking about.
One, yeah.
Yeah. Here and there I meet somebody who says, you know, I have a copy of that Undercurrent Blues, you know. But I don't know where my copy is.
If I can find one, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to have, don't you think?
Sure.
Was it your own tune?
I believe so. I believe so. I don't remember it. It's a while back there.
And what was the instrument that...
I was playing flute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe the whole record was a flute thing. And then shortly after that, well, I think it was 1954, I'm telling you about this guy that was kind of pushing my career.
Yeah.
We got into the studio, and I don't know exactly how it is. Maybe he put up the money, or I put up the money. We got a thing called Sam Most +2. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That was a thing with that Charlie Mingus put out. Now, it was debut records. Now, what happened was I had Louis Bellson on drums, Percy Heath, and who else? Irby Green, and Bob Duro, and who else we have there? Might be missing somebody. Doug Medemay on trumpet, and Dave Schulkraut. Davey Schulkraut.
Alto player.
Yeah, I don't think he's around anymore, but so anyhow, so my friend brought it to Charlie Mingus. He liked it, and he put it out, and so that started something. I think that was before I had. Then I don't remember what happened, but I got 4 albums out on Bethlehem. I don't know if you know anything about those.
No, sorry.
I had one big band album, with a lot of the New York people.
Yeah.
One of the things I had was, you remember a fellow, Teddy Cohn, vibe player?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I worked up in Syracuse with him with Pepper Adams.
Oh.
He had a group up there. Well, anyhow, he wrote, Hall Overton, who wrote the thing for Monk. I was studying with him for a little while. He was too busy because I wanted him to write some music. So he asked Teddy Cohn, he changed his name, to write the string quartet album.
Oh.
Now, so I had a string quartet album with, at that time, I guess in the 50s, and I had Jimmy Rainey and Art Farmer's brother and some of the Metropolitan Opera string people. It was really good. A string, very modern. This guy, I guess, studied with Hall and had some things that sounded like Bartok, at the time with the strings. And I played clarinet and flute on it. And I was going to mention a few things about it, but oh yeah. And anyhow, a half hour before the date, a drummer said, "I'm sending someone else down because I can't make it, but he's good." And guess who it was?
Who was it?
Roy Haynes.
Ooh, I guess he's pretty.
So he called me up a half hour before the date. So he sent in one of Lenny Tristano's guys, Harold Gronowski. But I just, I wanted Roy, that might have made the whole difference with the whole thing. Anyhow, that's the story of that thing.
Yeah.
So I had one big band, another thing, then a quartet album with Bob DeRoe and some other people. And I've got about 4 or 5 albums on Bethlehem. Some arranged things and at that time.
Meanwhile, while this, during this recording, what kind of, you're living in New York City?
Living in New York.
And what kind of work was paying your rent?
Let's see. Do I remember what?
I mean, was there enough jazz gigs around for you to live on it?
I don't think there, well, not primarily jazz. I guess there were casuals, like the bar mitzvahs, the weddings,
yeah.
Some of those things. I did have a small group, and I don't know what year it was, several groups at the club called The Composer. I don't know if you ever heard of that room. And once had Teddy Kotek on bass, remember? Him, and guess who the intermission pianist was?
Oh boy, let's see, Errol Garner.
Oh, close. Bill Evans.
Oh gee, no kidding.
He was the intermission pianist, and I said, "Who's this guy? Wow, he really plays." And so later, I just remember Bill Evans was the intermission pianist at this place. But so I had a quartet, and I was playing clarinet and tenor. I guess it was probably a little flute, but I remember the clarinet and tenor. And we had a 6-night-a-week gig. I don't remember years too well.
Yeah. Did you have to go down to the Union and hang out, waiting for gigs, or were those days?
Yeah, that was the days when you went down to the Union and said, "Do you have Saturday?" I mean, anything happening on Saturday, or you see people that and says, "Hey, you working Saturday? We got a gig for you. This wedding, this bar mitzvah, this party."
Yeah.
So there was little coming in that way, or so I was doing some concerts around New York too, because I haven't thought about this for a long time, but I did some. This is just fragments of association. I did one concert with. I had a small group, one at Town Hall, I think. I had Charlie Persip, and I forgot who else. Well, I don't remember that too well, but another concert in Connecticut, and who was sitting in the audience right in front of us, but Dizzy Gillespie and Sonny Stitt, so I was a little nervous. But we were doing those jazz concerts. I remember,
Right.
So I got to do some of those and the recordings and jamming. I remember going to Harlem, and I guess every Saturday I'd jam with piano player and bass player. We go through the 12 keys on Cherokee.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
It's like a little testing ground, hey?
Yeah, yeah, like, yeah, so we play Cherokee in 12 keys and other tunes, in 12 keys, like all working out together.
Oh.
That was good, And that was the days when you can go to Harlem and, it was looked upon like everybody's welcome,
Yeah. So that the racial scene between musicians was cool?
Yeah, it was really cool. It wasn't too much static, like, we can't, you can't come to our part of town or else it's a little uncool, It was more movement going on.
Did it change while you were still in New York?
No, I think it changed at the end of when I was in New York. Just seemed to be a little bit more, what do you call it, the opposite thing, like where before, everybody kind of blended together. You can work together. Now they tended to like, well, all black and then all white, or not everybody, not all the musicians.
You moved to Los Angeles when?
Around somewhere in the early 60s.
Yeah, okay. Well, the civil rights movement was getting going, and I guess there was a certain amount of black power type things.
Yeah, those things were happening.
Yeah.
A little bit. I remember being down at the Village Vanguard. I don't think he knows me. Knew me. John Coltrane. I was talking to him about reeds, backstage. He was trying different reeds. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. And I tried to ask Jimmy Garrison, his bass player, what's happening? What are you guys doing? With this new thing, with McCoy Tyner and everything. And all he would tell me was, we're just playing. We're just doing the things we do. Nothing. There wasn't any secret that he can tell me, like, well, we're extending this chord or playing modal or anything. He wouldn't tell me anything other than we're just doing our thing. So I couldn't get any information because I wanted to know what is it that they're doing that's so, it was getting further out there and interesting,
Yeah.
But I couldn't really pick up on, what they were thinking about while they were doing this.
Either he didn't want to give away any secrets, or
Well, he couldn't
maybe they were just doing that.
Yeah, they were just doing that without thinking like, well, we're doing this, and that's why we're,
Yeah, that's why it sounds like it does.
Yeah, so I think no one could let me know, whoever was, I think I mentioned it to Jimmy Garrison, I'm not sure who else I spoke to.
Did Coltrane's music appeal to you at that time?
Something very interesting about it. Take these long solos. I think I heard a half-hour, 45-minute solo at Birdland.
Oh, God.
It just goes on and on and on and on. I says, I wonder, I couldn't figure out exactly. It was pretty intense, stuff. I remember another intense thing when I was in New York. I went down to hear an Albert Ayler concert.
Oh boy!
And I stayed there for 3 hours, and I almost threw up because it seemed like they were just, doing all these. Odd things. I said, what the heck are they talking about? What does this mean?
Yeah,
But I had to go down and hear it for myself.
Yeah.
I was interested in some of the records, Albert Ayler and that type of stuff.
Wow. You stayed for 3 hours.
I stayed for 3 hours because that's what it was. They had several people do all something like that. We go, all sorts of odd, like as if like, well, I guess it sounded angry.
Yeah.
Yeah. But some of it was very interesting, then some of it perhaps not.
That's very diplomatic of you.
Yeah.
Perhaps not. You even did, to backtrack just a touch, you were with, did some gigs with Tommy Dorsey.
Oh yeah, I was about 22. I went on the road for about 8 months with Shep Fields. I was playing alto and clarinet, and then I guess who was on that band? Red Mitchell's brother was playing bass on that band. But after I got off that was commercial. I guess my brother had been playing with Tommy Dorsey, and he probably said, "Hey, my kid brother's playing clarinet. Maybe he could take take a chance, try the thing." So I went there, and Tommy was very nice. I wasn't experienced really reading like the charts, because the first thing, like, how to read a whole book with a major band. So I lasted about 2 or 3 weeks, but Tommy would always say, "Take another solo, kid, on the clarinet." He was very nice about, You know, says, take another one, kid. You know, so that was nice. But as I say, I think Charlie Shea was on the band, or so that was a nice experience. But I wasn't ready to read all those charts correctly on alto and do the clarinet solos. So I needed more experience.
Right. Yeah.
So then I played a little bit with Boyd Rayburn. Also, I guess some of those were some of the big bands before Louis Belson and Buddy Rich.
Yeah. When you were doing the bar mitzvahs and the gigs to pay the rent, you were kind of expected to know a certain
repertoire,
right?
Oh yeah. Well, as I say, you kind of grew up with all the standards, and that was part of the thing. Other than maybe if you had to play some ethnic Jewish stuff, you know, for the bar mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, you just would hear the tunes on the radio. I hear Rhapsody or whatever that they might play at some of these gigs. Some of the tunes of the Latin stuff, you know, what difference that they made. It became part of your repertoire, all the standards that you heard on the radio that were current at the time. That was before Rockabye Baby. What do you call it? I Get No Satisfaction, you know.
I was just, you hinted at my next question.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if any of the early rock and roll, if you began to get requests for that kind of thing on those gigs, and how did you deal with that?
Actually, I think I left before then, or else it wasn't. Maybe it was coming. I knew that was becoming more popular.
Yeah.
I think other people were doing it, or else yeah, I didn't get too much, especially on my instrument. Maybe you had to do it more on guitar or something else.
Oh yeah. Okay. What prompted the move to the West Coast?
I think mostly there seemed to be maybe like a little slump in what was happening. Of course, you know, before that, before I went to the West Coast, I was with Buddy Rich with the small group.
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
About 2.5 years. We had Mike Manieri and a few other people in Buddy. And that went very well. We just traveled around the world because he had a State Department tour. We went to India and South America and Afghanistan, Vietnam, Nepal. Just a lot of crazy places with Buddy. And he had 2 records, too, but they're kind of collector's items on different labels. But, by the way, just to backtrack, I was at Manhattan School of Music for a while, and that's when I got the offer to go with Buddy. I think I went down to Birdland, and someone said he's looking for somebody. Sullivan Powell was leaving. And so I think it was my friend again who, Arnold Rosen. He says, why don't you get up there and play? Anyhow, I sat in with Buddy. He says, you got the gig. You know, that was the thing. The other time I remember going to Birdland, and my friend also said, why don't you get up there and play with Lester Young? So I got up, I got up to play, and Lester Young tapped me on the back and says, go ahead, good, kid, blow. So
nice.
That was nice of him, you know.
Nice.
I remember another thing with Lester Young. I was walking across the street in New York, and his famous Lester Young, he's walking across the street to the White Rose Bar, and I'm crossing the street with him. And I said, tell me, could you tell me like what you think about when you improvise? So he said, I just play from here. That was his answer. You know, just little things that you remember.
Right. Cool.
And the other thing that, I don't know, I'm just going around different things, just ever comes to mind that I wanted to tell you. The other thing is, when I was about 17, you know, I was living in New York, so I went down to 52nd Street, and they had all these great players there, Art Tatum, Bird, Errol Garner. Walked into this, I guess, I was able to get in. Maybe I looked a little older at the time or whatever, when there was somebody, and who was playing, but Ben Webster was playing, and it was like beautiful, smoky, and he was sounding so great. And I said, that's what I want to do. You know, so that's how that started. When I was about 17, I said, wow, you know, to be able to play the tenor that way. And so that was a big influence.
Really? Know? That's a good story. That kind of that romantic, semi-funky atmosphere, you know.
Yeah, the smoke is filling the air, and he's playing, I don't remember what tune, but that sound and everything.
That Ben Webster thing, yeah.
Wow. That's what I want to do, you know. I remember a few times we had different people sit in with us, with Buddy's band, like Errol Garner sat in, and a lot of the drummers, Philly Joe Jones and Mel Lewis, and a whole bunch of Ed Shaughnessy, and can't think of some of the other guys, Joe Morello, but Philly Joe sounded so good. But Buddy, of course, was, he'd wipe them all out with his things. I used to call him the Art Tatum of the drums, because, you know, he could just do anything, and
yeah, he's
fantastic. I used to hear 20-minute drum solos practically every night for 2 years. And beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, just so great control of everything.
Must have been interesting to tour the whole world.
That was interesting.
Is there any place that you went to that really sticks out in your mind?
Let me see. Well, South America was that was great, like a thrill, especially when you're young. You see all these places, and I think maybe the carnival thing was going on, but it just seemed so romantic, and the beautiful weather and the women and everything, and a great place. I think we were at the Copacabana, like overlooking the beach or something like that. And the bossa nova was just kind of becoming popular. It was so beautiful, and so that kind of sticks out. I remember being in a tent with Buddy, you know, in India. Like they had these workers to keep out the mosquitoes and whatever, and it was being in a tent, and me and someone else over there. I guess we were getting stoned, and I had this little melodica, and I was playing different things, and everybody was breaking up and laughing. And I remember Buddy told me, he says, "You have such a great time," you know, which is it's a good,
nice compliment from Buddy Rich.
There's some other good stories that I remember as compliments that I just wanted to mention that I'm proud of. Like when I think of it. Is once I was doing the Soupy Sales show, and so I met in Detroit, and I was walking on the street, and I run into Bill Evans, and he says, "I saw you on the Soupy Sales show. I really dig your lines." So, which is great, you know.
Isn't it interesting that he would pick that out? Yeah,
isn't that something?
Soupy Sales, yeah.
I guess it's in Detroit, I guess, and maybe he was in Detroit at the same time, and no, not Soupy Sales. Bill Evans told me.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing, I was doing a Scat thing. One of Stan Getz, he used to hang out here with Maury Stein. So I did a thing, and I was Scat singing at his, like, Maury had died, and kind of a little thing at Alphonse's, the club. So afterwards, Stan Getz told me, he says, "Man, you sound better than, you're one of the greatest Scat singers." That's what he told me, you know. So
cool.
That was a nice compliment.
When did the idea of singing through the flute
that happened. There's a little story involved with that. I couldn't make a lot of noise in my apartment. You know, I was living with my folks.
Oh.
And so I used to go in the closet and just I'd sing while I was playing, and because I wouldn't have to play the notes with full volume. Something like that. People tell me I used to practice on the subway. You know, take out the flute and everything. I don't remember some of these crazy things you do when you're young, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
People tell you did, though.
I did, yeah. He said, "Remember you used to take out the flute and play some bebop on the subway or something?" But anyhow, because as I say, I couldn't make a lot of noise. Maybe it was late at night and I wanted to play something. So instead of that's how that happened. And then I guess I recorded with it, and one of the earliest, as far as I remember.
Yeah. Well, Jay Canna made up, he tells this story about you making this weird entrance and knocking
he
over
loved
some
to tell that. No one could seem to tell it like him. About, we were playing at the Maryland Hotel in Chicago, and he builds up the story. He says, "And now, ladies and gentlemen, Buddy Rich, the great world's greatest drummer." It's pitch black, and then he says, "And guess what happens? You know, I'm late for the stage," and he says, "And here comes Sam running to get on the stage on time. Now the world's greatest drummer." I knock over his cymbals and the whole bass drum, and everything falls to the floor.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The world's greatest drummer. He fires me, and that's the story. But I mean,
is there any truth to it?
No, I mean,
None?
maybe I hit the cymbal or something, or it came late, you know. But
Gee, there should be some truth to it anyway.
there must be some truth.
Elaborate on it. He's gonna start somewhere.
Yeah, there must be some truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly.
So-
but he tells it wonderfully.
So the 60s, maybe kind of a difficult decade for jazz, at least in New York. You felt that...
Yeah,
well,
also, since my brother was out here, I guess my mother was encouraging me. He says, "Well, why don't you go try it out there? You know, maybe there's an opportunity to get into the pictures or be close to your brother,
Yeah.
and it'll help you a little bit." So I did get out there, And then I did some TV shows out here, you know, playing in the studios. I did a few things with some of the studios. In fact, he got me one of the earliest things. I'll tell you about the Frank Sinatra flute earlier, but I brought that along. I had a flute solo to do with Felix Latkin, or one of the early things, with one of the studios, and I wasn't that experienced, you know, with orchestras, and I was the soloist. So what happens is if you don't make the grade on a few of these things, they label you right away. He says, oh, he's a great jazz player, but he's not the studio guy. So I had a few opportunities when I wasn't ready. But then I did a few TV shows, Bob Nair show or some other stuff. And so I remember Frank Sinatra, we were talking about that once. Something he said, he's not in the studios either. Like he says, well, you didn't have your heart in it, or people. Some people like gear themselves up for that, and they train, you know, have some classical training or this or that. And he joked, he says, bebop ruined my life.
Oh.
You know, it's just a joke. But what I meant was, you know, I had a few chances of doing, doing that stuff. My brother was in the studios for about 20 years, but a few tests. Then I think Patrick Williams, someone hired me to get a call playing lead alto, you know, like the alto solo behind the movie, like, and I had to borrow an alto because I wasn't ready. I didn't have my own. Anyhow, if you miss a few trials, they label you. That's what I meant to say. He said, oh, he's a great jazz player, but he's not really ready for this or something like that. So what I mean is, you don't get too many chances.
Not too much forgiveness there.
That's what I meant.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, I probably missed a few things.
Well, maybe it was fortunate because you ended up devoting more time to the jazz.
Yeah, that's always been my love, is the jazz. Always, you know, instead of, I hear some people in the studios, you probably heard it already, saying, well, tomorrow we got M1 and M2 and M16, you know, the studio cues, they call it. Turn the page, M3. Next cue. That's their life is, I mean, not their life, the musical life is, they don't go out and play too much, but they have this down where they're technically able to play. Sometimes it's maybe more involved, but, you know, so I did a little bit of that. M19, okay. Next, M20, you know, and you make the money and so on and so on. But I've always had the most fun performing and playing jazz.
Can we listen to a little piece of something that I brought and off?
Oh, you used to like that. In fact, this. Oh, I have to. Yeah. Oh, that sounds nice.
It does sound nice, doesn't it?
It does.
That's good. Boy, that holds up well, I would say.
Yeah.
Beautiful. In fact, the tune is...
But beautiful.
But beautiful. Yeah. You know, one thing I noticed about your playing is that you seem to really like to switch octaves.
You know, I don't think I focused on that other than just naturally. I didn't focus on the fact that I'm switching octaves. Also, I guess, sad story of what I guess I'm still involved with it, is someone cut the head off that flute. It's like a French flute, like cut off the what do they call it, the head joint. And so it's never been the same, but it's supposed to be a good repairman. And he didn't ask me about doing it, and I didn't know that you can fit other heads in it, but I sold the flute. And some other flutes, you know, you get rid of some good instruments that were good, and you say, why did I get rid of that? Because they got such a beautiful recorded sound.
I guess so.
I don't have it now. In fact, I used another flute that has certain things, but it doesn't have some other things. Like I had a Powell that I recorded on Xanadu, and some of the early days I recorded on a Haynes. Now I have a Haynes with another head, and I can't afford the beautiful, like one day James Galway came in with 2 gold flutes. He'd let me and my brother play his flutes. And what I mean is he had the 22,000 platinum or gold flutes. It's beautiful, you know, how one you can get a beautiful tone if you, you know, produce it. But in fact, I heard he was stolen later on. I don't know if he got him back, but they stole his instruments. But what I mean is, a good instrument in the hands of a good player helps you play better. And I don't have the access to the best instruments. But anyhow, I like the sound was so good because I had another instrument plus my playing.
How did this...
Oh, that came
about this wooden flute?
Oh, yeah, I wanted to tell you about that. I was with Red Norvo for a number of years. I went to Las Vegas, Tahoe, and so he used to go on the road with Frank Sinatra. I don't know. In fact, the record came out recently with Frank Sinatra and with the Red Norvo group. So we were playing in Palm Springs. And we went over to Frank's house. I played piano for Frank. He sang Lady is a Tramp.
At the house?
At the house in Palm Springs. And he used to come into the Sands in Vegas and also the place Rimrocks in Palm Springs. He'd come in sometime and just pass, you know, pass the group while he's going into the lounge and say, "Hey, Sam, you're blowing your ass off," or something like that. Anyhow, we were in Palm Springs and we played a little thing for him. And he came out with this thing. He said, "Sam, I want you to see something." So came out with this box, and I opened it, and it's a flute, like a wooden flute made Rudel Card, England. It's supposed to be handmade. And he said, "I know you'd appreciate it. It's yours." I flipped.
Wow.
You know, Frank Sinatra gave me a beautiful flute.
Yeah.
No, I couldn't sleep. I said, "Wow, he gave me a flute." You know, Frank Sinatra. And so that's the flute in the picture. I was, I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah, Zan Stewart out here was doing an interview, and he said, "We'll take a picture for the magazine." So that was the picture, or something like that. And the guy who was taking the picture said, "Well, we'll just change your shirt, and maybe you can use some of these pictures."
Cool.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
That's some occurrence because I hadn't had any pictures for a while other than the one on that cover, you know, the Xanadu cover.
What was it like to get record labels to record you? It's been hard over the years?
Well, it was easy for me. I was, I guess, what was I? Yeah, I was in my 20s, 24, 22, 23, 24, just like the young lions today, only maybe a little different. So I think with the help of my friend, or I don't know how it came about, but I got it offered to do the 4 albums for Bethlehem. And then, but recently it's been very hard from my conversation with other people. Either you have to, even the bigger names, like when you told me, Roger Keller, you know, you have either putting up the money yourself, or I'm not sure, but it's been harder recently to do it. I had one thing that I did with somebody, a home recording, you know, a little place like this. I was in the other room, and we did a thing where I was sketching, and they've been playing it out here a little bit. But the record isn't out yet. The CD isn't out yet.
I see.
I could have brought that one, but I didn't bring it yet.
Who are the
you showed
other
me a good
jazz?
Copy on this thing.
Yeah. It sounds beautiful. Off an LP, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you should. There's some student from Italy that came over here, and he thought I was like Charlie Parker and Linda Stein. You're a genius, blah, blah, blah. And you know, he wanted to get a copy of this Catalyst thing. And I have so much clutter in my place that I couldn't reach it. I don't know where it is somewhere. I think I have to send him a copy. But the other thing is I did an album with, I went to Japan with Ray Brown. Was it Ray Brown, Hank Jones, and Alan Dawson. And we did a recording over there that is a CD. He was supposed to send me a copy of it because I don't have a copy of the CD. It's kind of hard to find, but it's out there somewhere. I don't know why I mentioned that, but just going around.
Who are the other jazz flute players that you've listened to and enjoyed or not enjoyed? I
listen to a lot of the people like Hubert Laws and Joe Farrell. In fact, most of my influence has been more like saxophone players. You see, so that's why I associate the bebop thing and the style, plus my own, you know, whatever I do with those influences. So it seems like I listen to more saxophone players than flutists. I mean, I like, you know, a lot of these people. It's just I was more influenced by Charlie Parker and Stan Getz and Lee Konitz and that type of thing.
You've had some pretty nice compliments here from
Oh yeah.
Charles Mingus called you the world's greatest jazz flute player.
Oh yeah, well don't forget he put out that album.
Yeah,
and,
well that helps, doesn't it?
He did like that, but
Yeah.
he came into a club. I was in New York, and as he came in, he was going to a table and says, "There's Sam Most, the world's greatest jazz flute player." You know, whether it meant it or not, but it was nice. And also another one that called me his favorite bebop flutist was Charlie Mariano.
Uh-huh.
I haven't seen him for a long time, and
Yeah.
okay.
You know, you asked Lester Young a question about what do you think about when you improvise?
Yeah.
And he gave you that answer. What if I ask you the same question? Is it possible to put it into words?
I don't know. I think it's hard for me to explain it myself. I try to get the emotional thing across. I think it's a matter of all your experiences that come through too. But I think a lot of the things that you practice and everything comes into your improvisation. You know, the technical thing, and sometimes it becomes maybe subconscious. You know, the different exercises you practice, like so that goes with certain chords or certain scales and everything. And of course, when you're playing, you don't always think, well, I'm going to play but from knowing these things and having it, just like classical training, I guess, having these facility, you're able to manipulate the chords or the harmonies with instantaneously with some of these things that you maybe have under your fingers and mind.
Yeah.
And so all that comes into play, and sometimes I'm thinking of the chords while I'm playing, you know, say a standard.
Sometimes you're thinking of the chords, but not always.
Not always, or else just the name of the chord. Say, I'm B flat now, it says, and then automatically I think of melodies. I usually like this. I remember having an interview a long time, metronome and the downbeat, and saying like I like to lyrical quality, like as if you were singing, you know.
Yeah.
Pretty melodies like something that makes sense, and I always like that, and that's what I sort of think about. So see, if you know you're in B flat, you know, then you know the intervals and what you could do, and you make a melody right on the spot.
Right.
Yeah, that's more or less, you know. I don't know to get any deeper in it, but that's the idea.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I know you know it.
Well,
yeah.
It's a hard thing to put into words, and sometimes it just depends on the tune too. Seems like sometimes you have to think harder about the chords. Because of the particular changes in that song.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Other times they say if it kind of flows naturally, like 2, 6.
Yeah, right.
2, 1. I mean 1, 6, 2, 5,
right.
That type of thing.
Right.
You just don't think about it because you hear it and say, I know that's ba-da-do-dee-day, and it's easy.
Well, can you still play Cherokee in 12 keys?
I think I can.
Can you?
Yeah, crazily enough, yeah.
I can't play it in 1. Come on now.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, yeah. I don't know. For some reason that you had to learn that because that was one of Charlie Parker's Coco, you know.
Yeah.
And it became a great exercise. In fact, I used to do that even on piano because I played some piano. Since I've been about 18, I didn't have a piano until I was 18. Then the neighbor next door, I got a hold of one, but I've always been
mostly self-taught.
Mostly self-taught. Little study with some people, you know, Hannon and different things. Mostly self-taught and always interested in the harmonies. And
yeah, it helps definitely.
It definitely helps, like to you know, and helps when you're playing with other people or yourself to go through tunes. I like the Ebersol things too. They're good, you know, all the things, 12 keys there again.
There you go.
I don't think, you had Cherokees and 12 keys, Ronnie, but I was doing it years ago.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It comes around now that you can buy it to practice along with it. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's so much available these days.
Oh, yeah.
What's going to happen with the wealth of jazz students? Do you think they'll have a place to practice their craft
Gee, I don't.
in the future?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether there's going to be enough break, although they say the cream will rise to the top. You know, if there's some outstanding musicians, I guess somebody will say, this guy is too good, like to, you know, you have to discover him.
Yeah.
I guess so, but I don't know what's going to happen to all those people, either stage band people or people that play with the bands. Or I understand there's a lot of good people coming out. That's where some bands hired people from here and there, off Texas State or somewhere, Berkeley.
Yeah. Well, it's never been the most popular kind of music. Have you ever had occasion where people ask you to do something in the rock and roll vein?
I've had to play a few gigs before. I was playing with one group that at first it was only at first it was 10% of 10% rock and roll. Then it came to be 80% rock and roll. So that I didn't stay with the band, but you had to play certain things like they had these disco things, or else the saxophone player had to play. I mean, I'm not singing right, but
yeah.
Or certain in the group.
I know what you're saying.
And so I had to learn the phrases on the records, like, you know, that type of thing. I says, oh, and I couldn't remember anything anyhow. So all those things that you had to play rock and roll. I says, so after a while, I says, I didn't fit in because I couldn't play the riffs that were on the record. I never wanted to memorize them. I was trying to memorize Charlie Parker solos.
Not did it.
That's it. Things like that, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
God.
So as I say, when it became like 80% that, you know,
Yeah.
I get no satisfaction and can't remember all the titles of the things like, I can't remember some of the tunes. So then I didn't work with those groups that much.
Yeah. Let me ask you about a couple of people here that you've played for or with, or they've played with you. Quincy Jones.
Oh yeah, Quincy. I actually did a recording for John Hammond and on Vanguard, and Quincy wrote one of the tunes called Funk Junction. That was before he became very popular as a writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about Chick Corea?
Chick Corea, I just sat in with the Chick when he was out here, and went over to his house at a Valentine's Day party or something.
Yeah.
Played a little bit.
He's always liked jazz flute, hasn't he?
Right. And of course, we made that record, you know, with Joe Farrell, one of his flutists.
Yes.
It was on him, but then he died.
Yeah. That was a shame. I know you've recorded with, Sam Noto. Look at that. Yeah.
Oh, Sam Noto is on one of the Xanadu albums, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard some of these?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I met Sam, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he was out here, and we did a thing in Dante's.
Yeah.
Because we did an album together with Sam Noto's.
Is there enough work in the Los Angeles area for a jazz musician that doesn't want to get into the studios these days?
Not too well. You must have heard the joke, the Polish jazz musician that got into it for the money? Haven't you heard that joke?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
Okay, so I told you.
There you go. That just about sums it up.
Yeah.
Polish jazz musician.
They got into it, jazz for the money. I thought you had heard that.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Because it's pretty hard to, I don't know, I guess some people have some outside things that they do, but I probably make it mostly on little jazz gigs and casuals, and of course at my stage, you know, Social Security, a little pension, and the jazz gigs and the casual.
Yeah.
But because there's not that much studio work around, still hoping get some more recordings someday. I don't know if I'll have to pay for it myself or what, or some of the smaller labels or what.
When you get a gig in a jazz club, maybe a new one, you have a circle of people that you call then?
You know, I don't have a mailing list. I know many people have...
No, but I mean to get the musicians to play with you.
Oh, you mean the musicians, not the people?
Yeah.
Oh, just the people you know around town that do it, either guitar player or a piano player. I used to work a lot with Frank Sfizzeri, and then he was using Bill Perkins on some things. So I don't get that many gigs as leader occasionally. I just use some people that might be free that you work with.
Right.
I remember doing a gig where I had a little group and some little restaurant. I had Ross Tompkins, Lawrence Maribel, Jeff Hamilton, pickup groups. You know, he's not available, get someone else. You know, some other thing with John Hurt on bass, or you know,
Yeah.
just some of the better people here that are around that are available.
How has the LA scene changed since when you first moved out here?
I just think mostly the studio scene is, for myself, not as plentiful.
Yeah.
Very, very little, you know, because the synthesizers, one guy's doing all the work, you know, of maybe an orchestra or so on. So I don't know if it's changed that much, except that fell off, the studio work and pictures.
Yeah.
Things like that. I seem to be working more little jazz clubs or little gigs lately for some reason. So that's good. My girlfriend says, you must be playing good.
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
That's good to hear. So
Yeah.
I keep trying to, you know, stay interested in music, you know,
Right.
at least do a little, say hello to the instruments every day.
Say hello
every
to the
few-
instruments
you know,
every day.
Or else they get mad, you know. They say, you haven't touched me for a few days. You think I'm going to play good?
You think I'm going to respond to you?
You think I'm going to respond to you? Yeah. And I spend a lot of time at the piano, it seems. I like to, just like, you know,
Yeah.
you do. I love to look at either books or my own thing, you know, either piano technique or mostly harmonies and what you could do with the chords, and the same thing
Yeah.
over again with
You
the...
travel out from LA much these days?
Not too much, other than the surrounding things like Palm Springs occasionally, or
Yeah.
or just within a 50-mile radius, or if I go out to
Right.
Japan. Or
Yeah. Well, I just have to listen to this one more time before we go. I mean,
oh, thanks.
you know,
I like the.
let's see if I can get this up here, because that is a nice way to wrap up.
Oh, that's pretty. Thanks. I still like to listen to this. It sounds
Lovely.
I have some things that I didn't tell you about, but.
Go ahead.
Oh, is that, as I say, I'm doing more scat singing now, and also regular singing.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Like,
seems
what do you like to sing?
Oh, well, I like to sing, I was saying, my girlfriend was usually telling me I sound better when I sing up tunes, you know, like happy tunes, for instance, like I do Lady Be Good, Avalon, some of the other ones I do. You know, up tunes that I can scat on Indiana. I like to sing all the pretty ballads, like I sang over the past few days, My Funny Valentine about 4 times.
Yeah.
You know, once is a bossa nova or a ballad. So I like to sing the lyrics. It's nice, you know. I mean, that'd be, you know, Frank Sinatra or whatever it is, but it seems like I get some good response. And singing and also instrumentally.
Yeah.
I'm getting some good response from, and also I'm playing baritone lately.
Oh.
As I say, that's why I brought some of the things, but probably not time to hear. But there's a few people here that are, you probably didn't interview me, playing with Carl Saunders, a friend of mine. He's getting a few more albums out that he has like a benefactor, you know, that's putting in thousands. Doctor.
Oh,
That's the
yeah.
money, so he's going to help.
Love those doctors.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah. So I had someone in 1985 that put out, I think it's listed here, that was kind of Fernando Gelbard. He had some money and he said, well, I recorded with Frank Collette and he put the London Philharmonic strings behind it. I didn't bring the album, but so, you know, 20 strings behind me and Frank Collette, mostly all flute. But so as to say, he had some money, and well, let's do this. I had 4 arrangers, George Calandrelli and some other people.
Wow.
You know, so but I haven't recorded since then. That was, I think, 1985. I forgot where I'm wandering to, but so as I say, Carl was saying that, oh, you sound so great on baritone. You ought to just don't play the other horn so much. You know, just play baritone and flute. So occasionally I'll bring the baritone, and just to have another voice. because
Yeah,
I
you got to
used-
think of a whole new key now too, right?
Well, I was playing alto, so
Okay.
that's the alto key, and they
Yeah.
got the alto, the tenor, the baritone, the piano, the flute, the singing, the scat. So that's my act lately.
Get it covered.
I got it covered, And I've been getting. In fact, I played behind Madonna's brother, I think, piano.
No kidding.
Recently on a gig, a trio, and.
What does Madonna's brother do?
Well, I'm not really sure, except he hasn't announced it too much, but someone told me the guy used to run Pasquale's out here, Pat Senator, the bass player.
No, but is he a singer or something?
He sings, yeah.
I see.
I don't know if it's professionally or what, but he got a gig, and I understand he says, "Oh, that's Madonna's brother, Joey Ciccone."
Oh yeah, that last
Yeah,
name
so
rings a bell.
that might be him anyhow. I don't know whether he announces anyhow. I got a call to play piano with the bass player and drummer, and it came off really good, and people were really applauding for the piano. So I said, "Hey, this is nice." We had one of those. Well, it was a nice keyboard, Roland RD 300.
Yeah.
Sounded
Oh,
good
yeah,
with the
good.
amplification.
So someone saw you that night. They think that you're a piano player.
A few people.
The
and
next
another
time
thing,
they'll see you and you just be playing flute. They go, "Hey,
Hey, this guy is versatile."
Hey.
I played in Cambria with Charlie Shoemake. There's a club up there. So I was up there playing piano with him and a few other people. I think my brother up there, but he'd play vibes, and I'd get on the piano for some things, and the people were applauding when I played the solos. So I said, "Hey, this must be doing pretty good."
all right."
Anyhow, this is my little thing. I don't know whether we missed anything, but that's just
Well,
a little idea.
yeah.
Sam Most and what is it?
Sam Most and
in the 1990, is it 1999? Really, probably missed a few things, but anything that you think might be interesting that I haven't touched on before you close it?
Well, have you done any private teaching? You pass on any of this?
I
to
do have two
students?
books out, I had one is I think out of print, Jazz Flute Conceptions. And the other one is, I got a lot of good response from some good musicians on Metamorphoses. It used to be Metamorphoses, written about the 1970s. And then, what is it, Time Warner, I think it's Time Warner, or Warner Publications, put out, they changed the name to Jazz Improvisation. Unfortunately, they left out they put a CD with it, like play along.
Yeah.
But they left out the information in the front, the information in the back. They just said people know that already, which I wish they
Oh,
would.
great. Yeah, right.
I
Yeah.
wish they hadn't done that. And I just have a few students here and there. I don't have really a place that I can teach. So I just maybe sometimes teach at a store and
Right.
that type of thing. And I haven't given up yet. I'm still playing, and
Well, I hope you don't.
I hope to keep making each time you play. Like, what did they say? You're as good as your last solo, or
I
something
guess.
like that. So you keep trying to. Each time you play, keep trying to play some good music. And so I played a gig the other day, and my alto sounded good. The tenor sounded good. The alto flute, I'm playing alto flute lately because it has a nice warm sound on the flute. And my last gig was had a lot of nice compliments,
Right.
So you
Well,
look
I
from
love
compliment to compliment.
Yeah, and you have your a nice niche in jazz history, I think. And I think that's nice.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess that's my claim. I was like one of they call me the father of jazz flute, or
Yeah.
one of the early pioneers of jazz
Great.
flute, and I'm still trying to hang in there and play some good music.
Yeah.